Aloha, everybody. This is Cathy Bilsky, the Quantum Leap Let Light Unite show, and this is March 16, 2018. Tonight I got a very special show for you. I have Tsukuru Force, and we're going to talk about what's happening in Okinawa, Japan, and the Japanese resistance. And before I bring her on, I want to give you the radiation report for the United States. And I'm sorry, I can only do the United States because they're the only ones that I guess are reporting that Bob Nichols can find and put together. I mean, it's really not good. And when I was every Monday, I can hear you, Joe. Every Monday now, from 4:30 to 5, quarter after 5 on Facebook, I'm doing a very special Facebook Live, and it's all about Fukushima and radiation and some of the energy work we can do. Hey, Joe. Joe. Hello, Joe. Thank you. Okay, well, I don't know what he's doing, but we're just going to have to talk over it. So I invite everybody to join in because the more people that do, the quicker we're going to solve this problem. Okay, so I'm going to give you the radiation report for this month. Now, I just want to let you know that anything over 20 rads is bad, okay? Remember, 20, 20, okay? So now I'm going to give you, all right, let's just say this is the 9th week of 2018, and all cities, there is like 98 cities that are above 3 million rads, okay? 3 million. So I'm going to start at the highest city, and I'm going to go down to the lowest, and I want you to pay attention because if you live near this, you know, you need to be aware of how bad the radiation is, okay? So Colorado Springs is the highest, and they have 16 million. Over 16 million rads, okay? Now it goes down to Little Rock, Arkansas, and Raleigh, North Carolina, and they're over 14 million rads. All right, 13 million is Navajo Lake, New Mexico. Now over 12 million is St. George, Utah, Fresno, California, North Carolina. And they're over 14 million. Oh, there is. Can you hear that? Can you hear the echo? Now over 12 million. All right, so Spokane, Washington is over 12. Portland's over 12. And now over 11 million rads is Denver, Colorado, and Riverside, California. Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, Grand Junction, Colorado. Now over 10 million rads is Tucson, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, Bakersfield, California, San Bernardino, California, Anaheim. Now over 9 million rads. Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, Bakersfield, California.
Starlight Lounge presents an evening of progressive vibes.
Oh, what a great audience. Let's dim the lights for this next one. Oh, too much. Ah, there it is. Gotta get things just right. Like Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you're paying, and we help you find coverage options that fit your budget. And now, the mood is the right way. The lights are back out. Now it's completely dark.
Residential insurance company.
It's not a gun.
Hey guys,
And the Home Depot has everything you need for awards from California. Beautiful flowers like petunias, just $9.98 for 12 packs of assorted annuals. And a splashy red here, orange and yellow there. Turn that garden
Boston, Massachusetts, Hartford, Connecticut, Casper, Wyoming, Concord, New Hampshire, Laredo, Texas, and El Paso, Texas. Now, over 8 million rads. Corpus Christi, Texas, Rapid City, South Dakota, Kearney, North Dakota, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Wichita, Kansas, Cleveland, Ohio, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Billings, Montana, Bismarck, North Dakota, Mason City, Iowa, Kansas City, Kansas, Lincoln, Nebraska, Boise, Idaho. Like I said, there's over 98 cities. That's over 3 million rads. Okay, now this is over 7 million rads. Richland, Washington, Memphis, Tennessee, Amarillo, Texas, Salt Lake City, Utah, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Champaign, Illinois, Harrisburg, Virginia, Tallahassee, Florida, Carlsbad, New Mexico, Richmond, Virginia, now over 6 million. Birmingham, Alabama, Des Moines, Iowa, Knoxville, Tennessee, St. Paul, Minnesota, Aurora, Illinois, Madison, Wisconsin, Omaha, Nebraska, Lockport, New York, Mobile, Alabama. Over 5,000 rads. Baton Rouge, Dallas, Texas, Yaphank, New York, Burlington, Vermont, Miami, Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, Houston, Texas, San Francisco, Augusta, Georgia, San Jose, California, Chicago, Illinois, Birmingham, Alabama, Des Moines, Iowa, Knoxville, Tennessee. Over 4 million rads. Paducah, Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee. Over 3 million rads. Tampa, Florida. Is that anywhere near Mar-a-Lago? Rochester, New York. Fairbanks, Alaska is one of the lowest, but guess who's second from the lowest? Washington, D.C. What a coincidence, huh? So guys, that's 98 cities, over 3 million rads, okay? We are being slowly radiated to death, and you've got to talk about it to people. You've got to let them know so they can take precautions. You know, all these cities, we're all being targeted. And actually, and this is going to surprise everybody, but most of the reporting American cities actually exceed Tokyo, Japan's radiation level. Yeah, all right. So the only thing that puts out really radiation is nuclear plants, other than the military screwing up the planet. So what we kind of suggest is, you know, be really aware of what you're doing. Don't go out as much as you can. Take more precautions, do more vitamins, do more cleanses. And be aware that most of what's happening to your body is because of radiation. And there is one good thing here, and maybe we can do this as a class action suit, but someone actually sued TEPCO and the government of Japan over Fukushima Daiichi, and they actually won. Lead attorney Katsuyoshi Suzuki is the super lawyer who beat the combined forces, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, also known as TEPCO, a huge corporation, and the Japanese government. And, you know, we got to give them a big applause. Now, the district court ordered the two to pay damages totaling 38.55 million yen to 62 of 137 plaintiffs from 45 households located near the plant, which suffered a triple meltdown caused by the tsunami, awarding 70,000 to 3.5 million in compensation to each plaintiff. And as one person, Riley, observed, it's a judgment against a shell company in a bankrupt, extincted country. So what? There's nothing there. But, you know, we'll see what happens. And this is a ruling was the first of 30 similar class action suits filed nationwide involving more than 10,000 plaintiffs. So it's a good start. Tsukuru, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I'm going to do a little short version, And then I'm going to let you explain to everybody what you're about, okay?
Okay.
So Tsukuru is a peace and human rights activist in Los Angeles, California, and she's born and raised in Japan. And Tsukuru came to the US at the age of 19 and as an aspiring documentary filmmaker. And 28 years later, she's a business researcher by day and activist by night and on the weekends. So please give us a long version of your story.
Oh God. Okay, so first of all, I don't actually usually describe myself as an activist, but it kind of became difficult for me to explain myself. So I lack a better word, I just say I'm an activist, but I am a concerned citizen, more than anything. So we're gonna talk about Okinawa today, but like how I kind of launched into this is that I'm a agender person, which means I don't really identify myself as either male or female. And so like from early on in my life, protecting someone's dignity, like my own and others, was very, very important to me. So when I started finding out about what's happening in Fukushima to the victims of the accident, and also in Okinawa to the people who live there, ordinary citizens, and they were like, they are facing everyday danger because of the military presence there. I felt very concerned, and I felt very strongly that we have to speak up to protect these people's rights, because if we let these horrendous human rights violations happen to them, like it'll be us, who is next, right? So anyway, that's what I'm about.
Well, I really understand. I got to go to Japan last February. And oh my God, it's a beautiful place. The culture is wonderful. The people were awesome. The radiation sucked. Okay. But, understanding what's going on in Fukushima for me, I can't keep my mouth shut about the radiation. And because if we don't talk about it, it's not getting out there. And it's like you and I are giving voices to people that really can't talk.
Right. Yeah.
So do you get a lot of people who say, how can you get involved if you're not an Okinawan?
People actually ask me, or let me say this, like people really do not, they don't really question me or my, what should I say, authenticity about this issue, but people do wonder like why I do that. So the way I explain myself is that I have a bit of a personal history about US base because I was born in Sasebo, Nagasaki, which some people actually in this country know very well about Sasebo, especially if you belong to military at one point, because we have a naval base in Sasebo. So that's where I grew up. So like, early on, I grew up with protests. Whenever like nuclear ships came to our port, I heard about that. People protesting. So anyway, like I had a connection with this U.S. base issues early on, and I went to school in Hiroshima as well. In my high school, senior high and junior high.
Well, for people that don't remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki, this is where the United States government dropped the nuclear bombs in Japan, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So, and especially because the school that I went to was located at the time of the bombing 0.6 mile from the hypocenter. So 350 students died on that day. So anyway, make a long story short though, so I had that personal history. So when I heard about Okinawa from a close friend of mine back in summer of 2016, And this friend told me that I must do something because, well, she said, you are in the United States, and this is a US issue because US taxpayers can actually do something about this. We have a voice. And that kind of woke me up. So,
Well, tell us a little bit more about Okinawa. I know when I was reading some of the information you sent me, I thought actually Okinawa was all part of Japan, and they're really not, and they're actually a different culture.
yes. They, their people, well, okay, so about like until late 19th century, Okinawa was not part of Japan. They were annexed into Japan later on. But so anyway, they have an indigenous culture in Okinawa. That's not to say like 100% of people who live there now are indigenous people, but there are indigenous population in Okinawa. So, when I look at the base issues, I also look at it as sort of indigenous issue. It's clearly a prejudice and discriminations against people of Okinawa that unfortunately, like we Japanese mainland people have, the prejudice and discrimination against Okinawans. So
So yeah, the Okinawans are protesting, but does the mainland Japanese stand with them?
some do, but not enough from my perspective. So the U.S. base issues is complicated, but one of the issues is like if you look at it, so like Okinawa is a tiny island. It's 0.6% of the land mass in Japan, but 70% of the U.S. bases in Japan is located in Okinawa. So the argument always has been that like why do people of Okinawa, like why only Okinawans have to shoulder this burden about having U.S. bases, right? So they want the mainland to share the load, so to speak. But the mainland always like refused. They don't want it there. Like they don't want the U.S. bases, and by default, Okinawans like got to shoulder all these burden. So,
well, what are the two hot spots?
okay, so one is Takae. Takae is a village of about 140 people. It's a tiny village in the northern Okinawa. It's a beautiful place. I've never been there, but I've seen the pictures and the video footage. Anyway, beautiful place. The thing about Takae, in 2016, Japanese government mobilized about 500 riot police to Takae to push for the construction of Osprey helipads. Now, like if you don't know what Osprey is, it's a huge transporter. It's a military helicopter known to crash very often. So they earned the name such as like flying coffin. Anyway, so Osprey helipads, like newly, they were planning to construct 6 Osprey helipads completely surrounding the village of Takae. And people trying to stop that for the last 10 years. They've been protesting, but Japanese government forcibly entered Takae, and they almost completed the 6 helipads. So when the construction happened, like 2016, and almost completed in 2017, people started to lose interest in Takae because it was done deal. But the residents never gave up. They were still protesting because they still have a chance to stop the operations of the helipads. So that's one.
Well, aren't they also building these helipads where there's a lot of very unique nature and animals and.
Thank you. Good point. Yeah. So Takae is a part of a forest called Yambaru. Yambaru actually candidate for the World Natural Heritage Site. So if you can think about it, how crazy it is to build something like helipads there, like training grounds So yeah, Yambaru is home of a lot of endangered species and like unique species that only exist there. So yeah, so that's one, Takae. Another one is Henoko. Henoko is a site for a new base that that they are planning to construct to replace the existing base in Futema. Anyway, all these like names of the places are confusing, but anyway, Henoko, as you mentioned, yeah, I wish I could show you, like, everyone who's listening, the pictures of Henoko. It's a beautiful coral, like the ocean with coral reefs and everything. It's also a breeding ground for dugong. I don't know what dugongs are, like ocean mammals. They're
like seals and okay.
It's like mermaids actually are modeled after dugongs. So anyway, these are like really cute creatures, but they breed there. It's the anyway. So Henoko is like richly. It's incredibly rich in biodiversity. They found like 5,000 species there. And like 262 endangered species. So and they are trying to build their, they are actually proceeding with construction of a huge base. Something like, I forgot the exact size, but something like 16 baseball fields can fit in, and it lasts like 100, 200 years. It's crazy. Like they're destroying the ocean.
What's the Japanese government obviously is allowing this to happen.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And actually, Japanese money building it. Japanese taxpayers' money.
You just want to smack your head, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But this is the military. They go to the most pristine places and they're absolutely pigs and they destroy it. And they're doing the same thing here in Hawaii. They're taking their DUIs and they're bombing up on the mountains and releasing uranium energy into the air. Thank you. Like we don't have enough radiation. And they've started fires because they shoot with live ammo, and of course they're not going to accept responsibility for it. And everywhere they go, they leave a mess, and they're absolute pigs. They have no respect for the land at all.
Exactly. Yeah, so Cathy, like you live in Hawaii, so you can relate to this, like a plight of Okinawans, because like the things that you mentioned, exactly the same things are happening in Okinawa. Mountain fires because of the training that they do. And also, I recently spoke with a person who lives in Hawaii as well, because she was concerned because she heard the helicopter accidents that Okinawans are having recently. There's always been accidents, but from October of last year to February, March of this year, 2018, we have had unusual amount of accidents in Okinawa, like helicopter crashed in Takae, the farmland of Takae, and I think it was in February, or actually no, it was in December. The U.S. military helicopter accidentally dropped a window, 17-pound window, onto the schoolyard, where students, like 50 students, are having a gym class. Luckily, it didn't hit anyone. One boy was injured because of the kind of like an impact, but nobody hit, it hit no one. So no, so far, recently, no civilian death. But it's kind of like we are waiting for it to happen.
Are they all the same kind of helicopters?
It varies, but I don't really have a code name, but they're mostly same kinds of helicopters.
You mentioned the Osprey that they use. And that one you say goes down all the time.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, is that the main helicopter in Japan?
No, actually not. There's like other kind. I don't remember the code name again. It's like CH something, CH-53, whatever. Osprey actually crashed, not last year, but the year before, 2016. Yeah, and it was a close call as well. You see, the problem is that whenever they report the news of crashes here in the United States, I mean, occasionally like United States media pick it up and they report it, but they always report as if it landed in a remote place where no one's around. It's not the case. Unfortunately, Okinawa is a small island, and it's like the US bases are everywhere. So people can't escape from these things.
How many bases do they have on the island?
Okay, I can't really tell you how many bases, but 15 to 20% of the land is occupied by the US military in Okinawa.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, yeah. And it's always, Kathy, it's crazy because these accidents always happen very, very close to residential areas because they fly over residential area, which actually is not allowed in this country. I mean, in the States, they try to avoid flying over residential areas because they have agreement with the locals, but they don't care in Okinawa. They fly over schools, they fly over, people's houses. It's just
but
like
they're trying to get you guys to move off the island. So, why wouldn't they harass you?
God. Yeah, it's terrible. The history of Okinawa is a very painful one because even some Japanese people who don't know the history of Okinawa, they argue that like, oh yeah, why don't you move? Because they think that Okinawans purposely live near the base. Live near the base. Actually, what happens?
Oh yeah, it's their dreamland, right? To live near a military base. Wow. Oh God, baby.
What happened was though, like the main base Futenma, where the Futenma is actually right now. It used to be a lot of houses to begin with. It was like a busy residential commercial area to begin with before the war. But during the war, they had a really painful battle of Okinawa.
Now we're talking, for those of the people who can't remember, we're talking World War II here.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. So 1955, we had something called the Battle of Okinawa, which lasted 82 days. And killed, the number of deaths from that particular battle was 200,000 people. 200,000 people, Japan and the US combined, but mostly Japanese. So anyway, it wiped out the population, wiped out the whole of Okinawa, and the US moved in to occupy Okinawa. So until 1972, Okinawa was officially occupied by the United States. And while people of Okinawa evacuated to somewhere else, or they were living in a camp, the US government, US military started to build bases there. So when people came back to their houses, they did not find any houses because it was already occupied by the base. So they had no choice but to live around the base. So anyway, yeah.
That is so rotten. I know one of the things that we don't really hear about is some of the difficulties, the sex crimes that go on around the military bases. Mm-hmm. Isn't that really, really bad in Okinawa?
Yes. Unfortunately. And Kathy, the sad thing is, like with any sexual crimes, by the military or not, like a lot of women do not come forward, right? yeah, I mean, they don't come forward. So it's like we are talking only known cases, okay, so in 2016, the journalist, the British journalist who live in Japan and who is active reporting about Okinawa, he obtained the U.S. government document, a military document. So in 2016 alone, 27 U.S. service people were tried in court for sexual crimes. And the amazing, I mean, I don't want to say amazing, but hateful thing is 80% of that cases involved children. So it's horrendous. It's horrendous. Yeah.
So pedophilia is rampant on the basis. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, unfortunately, according to the statistics, and I guess, the children are vulnerable ones, right? It's an easy target. So I think
that goes into pedophilia. Okay, we'll just name it what it is. Okay, I don't have anything to hide with these guys. They're nasty, and I'm being very nice. So this is why women don't come forward. And how many of them actually make it to court?
Right, exactly. And another rotten thing is, so these cases were tried in military court. See, Japan and the US have this agreement called the acronym is SOFA, SOFA, Status of Forces Agreement. It's basically an agreement that decides if there were like crimes committed or crimes or accidents on the land where the US bases are, how they are tried. So anyway, very often, Japanese, it's not a Japanese jurisdiction. Japanese police or Japanese court do not have a power over these cases because the military do not hand over these people to Japanese legal system. So what happens is, in many cases, they walk free. They go back to the States, and we do not know anything about what happens to them. So
reminds me of the Catholic Church, and what they do is shuffle the priests around after they've been caught, being pedophiles, and talk about the boys protecting their own.
Right. Yeah, so, I was talking about the Henoko, the site for a new base. So, like when you hear young women, like, high school students being worried about new base coming there and asking their parents, am I going to be safe? Like walking around at night? That breaks my heart. Like why do they have to live in that condition, to be afraid of their safety in their own land? That breaks my heart because I'm a parent too.
Yeah, it's pretty backwards.
Yeah.
Well, what about those people that argue that U.S. military bases are needed because of the threats from China and North Korea? What would you say to them?
Okay, first of all, I do not believe, and I know there are a lot of people who will be upset with me, but I do not believe the U.S. forces are there to protect the interest of Japanese or the safety of the Asia Pacific region. They are there to protect the interest of the United States. And I think their military presence there actually is destabilizing the region. That's one. But another practical thing, actually many question the reasonableness of bases being in Okinawa or necessity of the bases being in Okinawa. It's actually not necessary. It's not a strategic location because I'll tell you why. So amphibious ships that are deployed if anything happens, like any, like, God forbid, conflict with, say, North Korea or China, the amphibious ship is stationed in Sasebo, my hometown, and they train there too. Okay, so if any conflict arises, what happens is that amphibious ship is deployed from Sasebo. It'll go all the way to Okinawa, to the south, pick up the Marines, and go back up north to, like, whatever, China, North Korea, doubling the time, the travel time. Okay, so many people actually argue that, like, why are we not building bases in Kyushu, the island of, like, where I am from, like, Sasebo's in Kyushu. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it's not necessary for the U.S. bases or U.S. Marines to be in Okinawa. They are just there because it's convenient for them to train there. It's like, because they have, I guess, supposedly they have to train somewhere, right? So, and the Okinawa is like up for grabs. So,
well, the U.S. kind of reminds me like a dog pissing all over there and all over and claiming everything as their own.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And they've done that in Hawaii. I mean, I am on, we've got Pearl Harbor, a big base, big. Okay. Right. Now I'm on the Big Island. All right. They send warships and amphibians into the bay.
Right.
And then I go to learn that most of that bay is owned by the military, and they just allow us to come in.
Yeah, same.
So, and it's like, why are you here? And some people will go, well, gosh, they're protecting us. Well, what we look at it as Hawaiians is, no, you're making it more dangerous, and you're making us more of a target because you're here. Hello.
Right. Yeah.
Very frustrating. But
yeah. Remember the false alarm incident? You got the false alarm.
Actually, yeah, we did, but because I have an old iPhone and I don't think they had my phone number, it didn't make it to me, so I didn't have to go through all that trauma. But the people that did hear it, they took it seriously, and some of them, I mean, they're post-traumatic stress. Now, I just look at it as if, where am I going to go? Am I going to go into a lava tube? And then, how long is that going to last? If it's radiation, we're all screwed anyway. So all I can say is I hope you've got a really good lover in your life, because go make love to him, smoke that doobie, and eat the chocolate.
Yeah. Right. No, but the point I was trying to make was that if Hawaii wasn't such a big military base, it would have never happened.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have been targeted,
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, I want to ask you a question too. Now, I know Japan has a gag order about information coming from Fukushima, and a lot of the resistance there is underground, and they do it very, very quietly because they can get into trouble. Now, is that the same way also for the Okinawans? Do you see that? They've got to be very careful with what they say. Are they very verbal in their protests?
They are. It's just okay. So, one of the human rights violations that happened in Okinawa is, they. I mean, when I say they, the Japanese government absolutely infringes upon their freedom of speech. They are vocal though, but like recently, there's this gentleman whose name is Hiroshi Yamashiro. He is a very prominent peace activist in Okinawa. He, along with two others, actually in 2017, they were imprisoned for 5+ months without trial. I couldn't believe it because up until then, I believed Japan to be a civilized country, but yeah, they imprisoned these people for 5+ months without trial, and only when Amnesty International stepped in and they launched international campaign to free them, the government freed them. But recently, they had a trial for these three, and they were found guilty. And you know their crime, or actually one of the crimes, they just Mr. Yamashiro was he had a few blocks stacked upon each other to block the entry of the truck to the construction site because he wanted to stop the construction or delay the construction. But blocks, few blocks, and he got 2 years in prison for that. 2 years.
Justice is not justice. I think it's a farce.
Right.
Yeah. It's everybody's getting paid and they're all on the same side. And, you are describing what the United States government does to all the indigenous tribes, including the Hawaiians. Mm-hmm. It's like this is a concentrated effort directed at all the indigenous tribes because you all are closest to the planet, you're closest to the earth. Many of, you've got the shaman, the medicine men and women, you've got all that old knowledge that they fear.
Right.
And they want to wipe out.
And let's not forget about people of Guam as well, because Guam is like really, Guam was like the alternate site. When they were trying to, when they were discussing moving the bases off Okinawa, Guam was the candidate, right? I mean, still is. And remarkable thing about people in Okinawa, it's not for them. It's not like, oh yeah, let's just move them to Guam. They are actually in solidarity with Guam because they don't believe the military bases should be anywhere. Not in Japan, not in Guam, not in Hawaii. People's rights should be protected anywhere. They're not trying to get rid of it and just forces upon someone.
Right. We don't want it, but let the Canary Islands have it.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't the Okinawas make any money off of these bases?
That's another common argument as well. No, it's actually, see, Okinawa is the poorest prefecture in Japan by design. And that's why a lot of people, I should say even, a lot of people in mainland Japan think that Okinawans benefit from military bases. No, statistics actually, the US bases contribution to Okinawa's economy is less than 6%, not much. And actually, there has been cases where U.S. military bases, were returned, or the land was returned to Okinawans, and they started building industries on that land, and they prosper. The rate of job creation is like really, what is it? It's like close to 20 times, like more than the time that U.S. military bases are. So, yeah. Anyway, less than 6% is not much. No, Okinawans are not benefiting economically from the U.S. bases.
Well, let me ask you a question, because was Okinawa at one time its own, it's an island, but was it its own country? And then Japan took over?
Yes. Yeah, they were annexed into Japan. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like Hawaii was annexed into the United States, and I look at Hawaii as an occupied country, occupied by the United States, which is what Okinawans would be.
Right. Yeah. See, I mean, it's always like tricky to talk about. Okay, so Okinawans, since they were like Ryukyu Ryukyu people. It's kind of hard to say Ryukyuans. Like some people question, like, okay, so do they want to be independent? That's a kind of tricky argument, dangerous like discussion. Because I don't think you have to ask Okinawans that, I guess, first of all, but not everyone wants independence or anything like that. But this is what I believe, because I'm from mainland. I'm from I'm Japanese, mainland, from mainland Japan. I think if we claim Okinawa as part of us, we have a responsibility to take care of them. But that's not what's happening right now. I think we are just like leave them to, what should I say? Like, we are, it's kind of like Okinawa is a forsaken land. Like we just like, anything that we don't want on mainland, we are just like forcing them upon Okinawans, and that's not fair.
Would you look at it like the genocide happening with them? A slow genocide?
Yeah, it's a cultural, like financial, economical oppression. I mean, see, Okinawa, as I said, it's the poorest prefecture in Japan. Childhood poverty rate is 29.9%. So like 1 in 3 children in Okinawa live below poverty level, which is horrendous. It's twice the national average. I think it's by design. I think it's economical oppression that the Japanese government is forcing upon them.
Well, they want you all to move out. If they can make your lives absolutely miserable and fly right over you, and they're getting you with noise, and they don't care. They want you out. They want the land.
Yeah, that's just not right.
Well, let's talk about the Okinawan resistance, and what is their principles based on?
God, I have to read it to you, but I just absolutely respect what their principles are. So this is from Takae, the village that I told you about, where the helipads are. So their principles are principles of non-violence and non-cooperation. That's what they call it. And there's official sit-in guidelines in Takae, and I translated this into English. So there are 3 rules, 3 principles. 1, non-violence. We do not condone any violence, including violence of speech. Harm no one. And 2, we take part in a sit-in at our own will. No one should force you to do anything. Please honor your own health and feelings. 3, always have a sense of humor and love. I mean, isn't that beautiful?
Yes. But to me, that's an indigenous culture. This is the same way as the Hawaiians. And, when they go protest, they bring the ukuleles. Right, and they're praying, and they're doing their sit-ins, but it's through prayer. It's, they insist that if you're going to be violent, don't come. Yeah. And, and that's the same, and that's how it should be.
Yeah. And it breaks my heart to see, military or riot police like forcibly removing protesters by force, because they are just absolutely peaceful protesters. They just sit there and, yeah, anyway, so
there's police forces all over the place. They're pretty darn violent. They dress the same, and I think it's more of a universal force that's been sent up, because if you, again, look at how all the police departments now dress in the black garb, face masks, helmets, you don't know who and what they are, all in black. It's scary, it's just not an individual police, but they're all awful.
Right. And exactly, see, there's this documentary that I'm showing called the Takae, the Forest of Life. And in that, there's a scene where this like young riot police officers, and there's this butterfly researcher, the local woman, and she's asking question that like, okay, so do you know what you killed today? What kind of creature did you kill today? Anyway, so you can see on these officers' faces that they don't want to be there either. It's hard for them. Like, it's not, they don't want to kill anything. They don't want to harass people. But the sad thing, I feel so sad for them as well, because these are young officers, like in their 20s. And the pain and embarrassment on their faces.
Well, I'm sorry, but they're choosing to be there. It doesn't matter how old they are. So what she's putting is truth. And if they're hitting their heart with her words are, they will stop and they'll get the hell out of there. And they won't be a police officer and they won't play the game.
Mm-hmm. I hope so. It's just I feel this dehumanization that happens at all levels. That's just so disheartening to see, because they just take humanity away from these officers as well. Not only they take humanity away from the people of Okinawa, but they do that, to the officers as well, by putting them, by forcing them.
So how can people support the Okinawans? What can we do? How can we get a hold of you?
Well, they can get hold of me, I guess. Okay, so you can write me email. My email address is for future Fukushima. So it's like, okay, so it's long though. I wish like I can just kind of put this up like on a piece of paper or something, but for future Fukushima, so it's FORFUKUSHIMA. Oh, I'm sorry, for future Fukushima, sorry. Forget that, for future Fukushima. FORFUTUREFUKUSHIMA @gmail.com. That's my email. And there are two petitions that you can do. Go to change.org. One petition is, I think, started by a local woman to designate dugong, the marine mammal, as a state animal. Now, if they do that, if they succeed in doing that, they think they can use that as a reason to stop the construction of Henoko.
Have they tried making it a sanctuary?
Yeah. Essentially, I mean, it should be sanctuary already, but so anyway, so that you can go to change.org and you can search like Okinawa and dugong, DUGONG, dugong. So that's like one petition, and another petition, which I started on change.org, is about halting all flight operations in Okinawa. Now that's a kind of huge goal. It's a kind of far-fetched goal, but I don't say like anything is impossible. So you can search Okinawa, flight, halt. Those three keywords will pull up my petition. So you can do that as well. Look me up on Facebook, Tsukuru, TSUKURU Force, or FORS. Lauritsen, that's my last name, that's too long, but LAURITZEN. You can find me on Facebook.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing all this information.
Yes.
And we'll have to have you come back again and we'll talk about Fukushima.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Cathy. And thank you, everyone listening.
All right, aloha, everybody. Good night, and I hope. Gosh, I think this is Easter week. No, we've got 2 more weeks. Anyway, I'm have a great week, and I hope Spirit brings you one of your heart's desires. Aloha.